Hey everyone. In today's episode, I'm going to get into Sydney Suburbs Set to Soar. Look, I've done an episode a few months ago on Sydney suburbs that I thought were good investments. Some here will be a little bit different, some may be the same. But the reason for doing this episode is because we're clearly in a part of the market. And I think it's important to do different regions where there will be areas that outperform others and others that underperform, should I say, neighbouring suburbs. So in today's episode, first of all, I'm going to get into fundamentals of good Sydney suburbs. Secondly, what's driving the Sydney cycle. And then finally, the suburbs themselves. So really good fundamentals of Sydney suburbs in the first instances are no different to anywhere else. You'd want consistently low supply and demand from a wealthy income demographic. Now, the reason this is important is because if there's consistently low supply, you've got nothing but basically people who have to fight over each other to get an asset, which they will pay more because, naturally speaking, people bid things up against each other. And secondly, if the demand's also from a wealthy income demographic, what happens is the amount they can bid it up goes up substantially. So, for example, if you're bidding in an area in outer Sydney, let's say it's some new estate in the west, right? They're all first home buyers and investors, so they do have their limits as to where they can bid. If you're bidding against someone in Bellevue Hill, it's billionaire against billionaire, so they'll bid it until one basically gives up and the other gets the house. That's basically what they do. They don't, because the incomes are completely different in different areas. So access to high paying jobs is a big one. Sydney basically has all the jobs practically in the eastern part of the city. You do have Parramatta and I'd say Bella Vista that also do have large employment hubs as well. Obviously, it's Eastern Creek is a more blue collar sort of employment hub, should I say? So when I say eastern part of the city, I mean lower North Shore, eastern suburbs, inner west. That's basically where almost all the jobs in Sydney are. So access to high paying jobs is important. Lifestyle triangle as well. For people from Adelaide or regional centre, if you're within from work to school to lifestyle areas within about half an hour, for Sydney that is pretty good. Most people would be very happy with that. So if you've got a good lifestyle triangle, that's good. That goes along with accessibility. Accessibility is important because certain parts of Sydney are more accessible than others. So, I mean, there's really good examples of that, especially in somewhere like Sydney's Northern Beaches, because they don't have a train line. I mean, what you've got is some suburbs where the bus lines and you've got ferries are very good, than others that are quite affluent and all that kind of thing too, but they're actually quite hard to get to and from. So it also does play a thing for good suburbs and getting tenants or living longer term in the suburb. School zones, very important in Sydney. So unlike, should I say, some other sort of cities, school zones in Sydney do play a large part. It's actually a quite common theme among many capital cities, especially if you're buying in inner affluent suburbs. School zones are important, but school zones, what it does is, it's particularly your top performing private schools, your affluent private schools in Sydney. You've got quite a lot of very wealthy families that all live there. They stay there a long time because their kids generally take, 6 to 10 years to get through those schools, sometimes more if it's a K to 12, or their primary school is very close by as well. So the whole period goes up, and you've got people that have a lot of money that live in these areas, so that's also very important. Facilities / hospitals. Facilities in Sydney, again, are very important. If you look at the established neighbourhoods, they've got everything nearby. Hospitals, as I've mentioned here, specialist care. You've got every sporting facility, parks nearby. You've got, even just general, should I say, community things going on all the time, where facilities to facilitate that happening. Hospitals are very important because hospitals create capital growth because healthcare is always going to be there. And a hospital generally has very stable employment. And it also has wealthy people that work in hospitals. So doctors, surgeons, dentists, anaesthetists, you name it, there's a number management staff that are all government backed, and they will always be there, government and private backed often actually as well. So those are fundamentals of good Sydney suburbs. If you can get the vast majority of them, particularly the first two, very well, you're going to do quite well in buying in Sydney. Look, what's really driving the Sydney market now, again, first things first, and it goes to the first point I made of a good fundamental of a Sydney suburb, long-term supply and demand. I've brought up previously on a few Sydney episodes an example of Clovelly and just showing you how many houses are for sale at any point in time on the market there. And there was like 6 or something like that. And I showed it over multiple periods, and it was still like anywhere between like 3 and 10 at any point in time. And there's probably hundreds of properties that you could buy in Clovelly. But anyway, that's an example of a suburb that just never has anything on market. So kind of whatever they ask for it is kind of what they get generally. And even in a cold market, they'll still get a reasonable price for their property because it's just so tightly held. Whereas if you go to Box Hill or Melon Bar or anywhere like that, out that kind of way, go and just look at what's for sale. There's generally like 100 houses for sale. And on some of those listings, it might have one, icon dot on real estate or domain. And it says, 50 sold, 34 to go or something like that of the next lot. So they're often not one, they're often multiple. So that's a little bit about, supply and demand. Transport and employment hubs, very important in Sydney. Employment hubs, again, they're all sort of towards the eastern part of the city. So apart from Parramatta and Bella Vista, really, with I'd say wealthier people living, working in them. But transport's becoming a thing because of the transport-orientated plan and the metro. The Sydenham, particularly the Tallawong or Bankstown, should I say, line that will open up next year, that is going to cut down time completely. So is some parts of the new Inner West line that's running through the Bays, Burwood North, and right through to Parramatta. That line as well is going to be also a very, very large driver of the cycle. Also, long-term demographics. People want to live near where people of a similar demographic are to them. So wealthy people don't move to poor areas. Sorry, I know it sounds snobby, but it's just the truth. They just don't. That's just not what they do. So keep that in mind. Don't follow the bullshit that the media tell you. It's just not the truth. That's just another thing about Sydney. People with money want to live near other people with money, or otherwise very close, generally to the harbour or somewhere like that, or a good lifestyle area. Price points is another one. Obviously, the 5% deposit scheme is affecting Sydney quite a bit, which is obviously good for owners, very hard for people wanting to buy there. But even price points in different areas. So I'll give you an example. Inner West sub 2 million, Northern Beaches sub 2.5, North Shore sub 3, Eastern Suburbs sub 3 million, Sutherland Shire sub 2 million, St George sub 2 million. All those areas are very, very much so in demand. And often you'll get fierce battles amongst people for that. So my suggestion is, if you don't have a buyer's agent like myself or someone who knows what they're doing to help you, you need to go looking for what is value of the property. So understand the value proposition of each property, because those ones are often underquoted and they know that they're going to sell for significantly more. So don't fall for that fallacy trap. That's just something that is common in Sydney. People from Melbourne will know what I'm talking about. So it's very common in Sydney and Melbourne, though, underquoting. But let's get into some suburbs now. So for under 1.7 million, I previously was talking about under 1.5 with Belmore, home of the Bulldogs. I'm a Bulldogs fan, if anyone doesn't know. But that doesn't exist anymore. So under 1.5 million in Belmore for the right dwelling does not exist anymore. And I was talking about that only a mere few months ago, but that's completely changed now. It does not exist. But under 1.7 still does. And the suburb I'll mention is Canterbury. So Canterbury is obviously in the Canterbury Bankstown, should I say, local council region. Canterbury's about, depending on where you are, about 10 or so Ks away from the CBD, directly west of the CBD. It is bounded basically by the Cooks River. So it is on the new metro line as well, Canterbury. So, really, you got a lot of homes like this in Canterbury, brick, veneer and tile bungalows, very common. You do still get some that are on larger lots above 450 metres squared, which is big for the Inner West. Those will go for over $2 million. But you still get good, genuinely good homes well located in Canterbury like this for around 1.7 or so million. That number, by the time I do this next episode, will not exist. I can tell you that right now. But that's Canterbury, really. And it's a suburb, really, that's truly gentrifying. This is just an article of Domain. Canterbury, the battler suburb, luring Sydney's Inner West trendies. What kind of happens with suburbs is that generally you have a spillover effect. So obviously Marrickville had the spillover effect probably 20 or so years ago, starting from Enmore, Newtown, Stanmore. Then it kind of went out to sort of Dulwich Hill, Helston Park, and now it's going into Canterbury, Campsie. So that's kind of how it kind of happens. That's how things gentrify. You have to have better neighbourhoods nearby. So that's kind of Canterbury. I mean, to give everyone an idea as well, Helston Park's next door, which is like $2.3 million. Ashbury's about $2 million, which is also next door as well. So I think it's a very underpriced suburb for where it is. That is Canterbury for under 1.7. Look, believe it or not, for under 2 million, it's actually surprising to say this, and it's just kind of had a little bit of a market dip at the moment. Not much of a dip, it's only like 5%, but for under 2 million, believe it or not, you can still pick up a place in Newtown. And for those that don't really know Newtown, really it's probably one of the most famous trendy suburbs of Sydney. It's very well known for the Marlborough Hotel or Marley Bar, Bank Hotel. There's a number of other ones. It's very good for a kind of pub crawl, and there's a very alternate crowd that sort of run through here. But you can still pick up, I mean, I've seen a detached dwellings in Newtown for flat 2 mil, slightly under even, which is so rare. And I mean, Newtown's like, depending on where you are and what you're looking at, usually anywhere between 4 and 6K away from the CBD. So it's extremely close to CBD and borders literally RPA there, so Royal Prince Alfred Hospital and Sydney Uni. So, I mean, one of the most famous suburbs in Sydney. It's really the heart of the inner west. And you'll see just articles like this: Newtown, affordable inner city living with bohemian charm and diverse homes. So you can see just the crust pizza and the mural paintings. You get a lot of that sort of style in Newtown. It's very common. A lot of attached terrace kind of dwellings here too, but if you can get a detached one for $2 million or under, I think you're doing extremely well, especially that close to Sydney CBD. Very, very, very good demographics here. Very good fundamentals. You're not making a mistake paying, like, let's say, $2 million for a detached dwelling, especially somewhere like Newtown in Sydney. Let's get into under 2.5 million. And the suburb I'm going to mention is Five Dock. So Five Dock's obviously called Five Dock because originally it was Five Docks in Five Dock. That's the reason it was called that. Really, Five Dock's probably best known for being very close to the harbour. It is actually, some parts of it actually are harbourfront. Very close to Bay Run, very close to Hen and Chicken Bay. Very well located suburb in Sydney. It's only about 7 or so K away from the CBD, maybe 8. Straight west of CBD, and is on the harbour as well. Very well known for having a lot of bungalows and federation homes, actually still in larger lots of about 400 to 600 metres squared, sometimes above. Mind you, the ones that are the largest style blocks will go for more than 2.5 million without a doubt, but you still are finding some that are, on the original, smaller kind of original lots for under 2.5 mil. I've even seen one above 400 metres squared, close to the 450 mark, for around almost exactly 2.5 mil. And I mean, the land value alone of that is probably $2 million plus. So, I mean, it is below replacement value, so land value plus the build value. But really, the thing about Five Dock is the location's one thing. You've obviously got the Great North Road running through it, but it's going to be pretty much one of the only harbourfront suburbs with a station on it. So Five Dock is harbourfront. It is on Hen and Chicken Bay. And the new Inner West line, as you can see here, that is running out towards Parramatta, will have a station on it. So that is right in the middle of the Great North Road Centre as well, underground there. That is going to have a station. So the bays there it's really not kind of a suburban area. You could kind of argue it's Rozelle / Lilyfield, but it's not really a majorly suburban area. Five Dock is a majorly suburban area. So the only real other suburbs in the country that have, not in the country, but in Sydney, that have harbourfront and have a station, really the only two you could probably argue, because Milson's Point is one, but Milson's Point barely has any houses. It's probably really only, should I say, Waverton and Wollstonecroft, which are both Waverton and Wollstonecroft are like $4 million suburbs, to give you an idea. So what you're going to see in Five Dock is you're going to get very wealthy people starting to move in here. They will buy up the stock and they will never sell it because they can literally get to Hunter Street in the middle of the CBD within probably about 8 minutes to 10 minutes or so. So you're going to start to get those people that move into Five Dock. Expect that to continue longer term as well. So that's $5 for under 2.5. Crazy to even say that. Look, for under 3 million, it's still crazy that these opportunities like that, mind you, this, and I've been talking about it for a little while, but this is starting to turn. By the time I do my next episode, I don't think this will be achievable anymore. Maybe just, but I'm not sure about that. And for under 3 million, I've got Neutral Bay. So it's probably one of Sydney's best located suburbs. Neutral Bay is also harbourfront to Sydney. It is in the lower North Shore. It occupies a beautiful pocket like this where you can see, obviously Jacaranda season, sort of October, November, particularly coming around, Harbour Bridge, harbour views from Neutral Bay. And I mean, Neutral Bay is only about 4K from the CBD. It's very close. Like, it's some parts of it are walking distance to North Sydney and all the, should I say, white collar district there as well. It's very close to Chatswood. It's close to Spit Junction. It's close to Brookvale. It's close to the CBD. It's near everything, really. It's beautiful. And it's got basically, it's like an old money sort of feel to it. So you can see on the left here, you get homes like this in Neutral Bay still. They're still on literally like quarter-acre blocks, no word of a lie. And it's also near all the jobs. So you'll see on the right there, St Leonard's. Neutral Bay is pretty much about a K to the southeast of that. So where all the major job hubs, Neutral Bay is, I kid you not, within like half an hour of all the major job hubs. Now, this isn't including the CBD, which is the biggest, obviously, but that's all the major job hubs you can see there. And particularly the big ones there, Parramatta, Macquarie Park, Chatswood, St Leonard's, Alexandria, Mascot, the CBD, those are mainly white-collar job hubs. So, I mean, that's a really important thing there as well. So it's old money, it's wealthy, it's near the CBD, it's very well located, close to very good schools, close to very wealthy suburbs. I mean, Mossman and Northbridge are like $5 million that literally neighbour it. And Cremorne as well, they neighbour it like $5 million. So, I mean, you can't go wrong buying a Neutral Bay. It's so underpriced. Like, if you were to pick something up even for a flat 3 million or even slightly over 3 million, but I'm seeing stuff detached under 3 million even at the moment still. Mind you, a trophy home like this is going to be like $20 million. So there are sales like that in Neutral Bay. So don't get confused, but to pick it up for like $3 million, it's just incredible. So that's my pick of under 3 million Neutral Bay in Sydney. Look, for under 3.5, I wanted to say Waverley, but I still think it's achievable. So Waverley is in the eastern suburbs as well, but I still think it is achievable just in Paddington. And now let me just be clear with Paddington. There are very few detached homes. Most of them are attached kind of terrace houses like this. There's very few. I have seen a detached home sell for under 3.5 million, and I think that was one of the best deals I've seen probably this year in Paddington. But Paddington, really, to give everyone an idea, it was originally Sydney's first slum. So in the times of the bubonic plague, more than 30% of Paddington actually had the plague, believe it or not. It was known as a very poor kind of area of Sydney, first slum, and they lived in all the sort of shacks, but they look like this today. So very commonly you'll see very well maintained, upmarket kind of looking attached dwellings. Is very common in Paddington. Some very wealthy people live in Paddington as well. Very common actually amongst childless couples or couples with only one child. Very, very popular amongst them. So, I mean, that's Paddington. And really, the demographics there are some of the strongest in the entire country. So if you just look here, this is Census 2021. And Paddington actually hasn't moved that much since 2021, maybe 15 to 20% at max. So you'll see personal, family, then household income there. Funny enough, Paddington, in terms of household income, is actually lower than a lot of suburbs, but the family income is one of the highest in the country, and personal is also. It's because of the dual income couples and also childless couples, and also a lot of the dwellings in Paddington, there's even some terraces that only have one bedroom, so solely on one income. But you'll see that personal income is probably the most important one, the top one. It's more than double the state average, and New South Wales is higher than the national average, to give you an idea. So look, Paddington, really, rent can be very high continually in Paddington because people that live here have a lot of money. They're very, very high income earners. In Paddington, it's not the same as it was years and years ago. So, I mean, for someone wanting to buy a good long-term product, Paddington is probably one of the best. Now, you have to have a massive budget. You have to have $3.5 million or so. but very, very good buy. You can't go wrong here. It's got such strong demographics. One of Sydney's best long-term performing suburbs in that. Now, look, I'm going to get into any budget now. There's a few I wanted to say. I wanted to say Bellevue Hill. I want to say Point Piper, but I mean, it's probably only really really targeting, I'd say, or not only targeting, but speaking to a very small proportion of people, because both of those suburbs are like, I mean, Bellevue Hill's like $11 million now. Point Piper's like 25. So you're not really talking to many people that actually live there or can buy there. But the suburb I'll mention is closer to the $4.5 million mark, and that suburb is North Bondi. Now, this is just Ben Buckler Headland. You can see how beautiful it is. That's just an overhead shot. That's kind of what it looks like. That, mind you, you're not getting anything on Ben Buckler Headland, especially if it's a house of probably under $10 million. So don't get confused. But there is the villagey part of North Bondi, just north of Bondi Beach, and a little bit in from Ben Buckler. We still are picking up stuff up for about $4.5 or so million to $5 million. And I know it sounds like a lot of money, but really it's like buying your Malibu Beverly Hills of, should I say Los Angeles, or like an apartment overlooking maybe Central Park in New York, or it's like buying something, for example, like in Kensington of London. That's the equivalent that you're buying here, really. I mean, do I really need to say much of where it is? So this is just the location of it. You can see North Bondi there, right next to the world-famous Bondi Beach. Just north of it and west of it is obviously Bellevue Hill, Rose Bay, Dover Heights, which are all like 6 to 10 million. Well, Bellevue Hill is like $11 million now. So I mean, that's where North Bondi is. It's located near, I'd argue Bondi is the most famous beach in the world, because people might say, Long Beach in New York. People might say, I don't know, they might say, for example, maybe Long Beach, California. They might say San Clemente, Santa Barbara, or somewhere like that, or Malibu in California. And yeah, they are very famous. Probably people knowing it are probably more famous, but when anyone thinks of Sydney, they think of the Harbour Bridge, Opera House, and Bondi. That's all they think about, really, when they think of Sydney, and Australia actually as well. They don't really think of anything else. It's near all the job hubs. North Bondi, good luck getting a good property without someone like me doing it for you for a reasonable price. They're so expensive, the houses here. But, I mean, it's such a good area to live. You can't really go wrong here. It probably arguably is the best, most livable suburb, probably along with Manly, in the country to live in. So really, that's North Bondi, and that's basically, in my opinion, the best suburb to live in probably the country, and probably buying longer term. You look, $4.5 to $5 million gets it done in North Bondi. It's not the very top of Sydney, but it's close to. But anyway, that's my summary for the Sydney suburbs. I know some have been similar, some have been different, but what I've tried to do here is just explain to you what's going on in the market and why areas are really important. But if you're someone who's really serious about getting in the Sydney market for all of the price points that I'm talking about, even if you have a lower budget, you search up some of my videos close to even 600,000 or a million. I do buy in different areas outside of Sydney, but if you're someone who's serious about buying in Sydney or somewhere right down to about 600,000, I strongly suggest you reach out by www.compoundinvest.com.au/inquire. Look, what happens here is you book a time in my calendar. We both get a calendar invite, so it blocks it out in both of our calendars. And what happens here is we have a 30-minute phone call where you tell me what you want to achieve and what you want to do. I'll give you some options, and we formulate a strategy from there. Now, even if you're not serious right now, maybe 3 to 6 months, or you're a bit hesitant, don't know what to do, or you have your reservations about buyer's agents, I completely understand. I still strongly suggest you reach out, because you understand how much I care about clients. I don't tell someone, I'm going to help you, then buy you an off-the-plan apartment or something else. I pretty much only buy detached houses in good capital growth locations. That's it. That's the only thing I will buy. And also, second to that, the strategy is more important than the purchase itself, because if you stuff the strategy up, you'll stuff up the purchase. I can't tell you how many rich people and smart people I've heard who've bought an apartment for $1 million 10 years ago who have actually lost money across 10 years when they could have more than doubled their money. So if you're someone who's serious or sitting on the fence, www.compoundinvest.com.au/inquire. Look, I thank you all for watching this episode, and I look forward to hearing from you via my website, and please subscribe to the channel. I'll see you on the next one.